Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
I know. I said I wasn't going to be here tonight. I said I was taking the night off because I had stuff to do. I had family things, and I was going to Toronto today, which I did. I did go to Toronto, but I'm here anyway. And the reason I'm here is because we have some important stories to cover tonight. So I thought I'd drop in. I don't know how long I'll be here, probably for a little while. The reason being, tonight, one of our friends, Rhonda Jubenville, freedom fighter, friend of this show, friend of mine, local counselor here who has made international headlines because of her stance on special interest groups' flags being flown in front of government buildings in this community. She was, if not the first, among the very first to make this an issue. And among those flags, of course, the pride flag, which the local council has focused on exclusively, although she tabled a motion saying we shouldn't really be favoring any particular flag because some flags and some special interest groups, some community groups were being excluded from participating in that practice. You know, the United Way, they fly flags in front of municipal buildings here. There are other community groups as well, but some churches were ignored when they wanted to fly their flags. So she tabled a motion saying that only government flags should be flown in front of government buildings. And her motion was defeated. Now, that exact same kind of motion that issue has been dealt with in other communities now across North America. And in some cases, municipalities, communities have adopted the very stance that Rhonda Jubenville took here. Well, tonight, in Dearborn, Michigan is one example of that, where a motion very similar to hers actually passed. And there are other communities across Canada and the United States dealing with this issue as well. Well, tonight, Rhonda Jubenville is being judged and potentially punished for the stance that she took on this issue. So we're going to drop in on the local council meeting here because it will again make national and probably international headlines because she has been spearheading this very issue from the very beginning. And I know that there are a lot of people down there tonight looking to support her. Let's just take a look now at what's going on in council chambers. I believe this is live. Yes, we'll see where we're at. I have other stories for you tonight as well. They have not started the council meeting there yet, but we will keep tabs on that for you. I know they were in an in-camera meeting, and they will be starting the regular council meeting very shortly, at which point during I have the agenda, we'll go over the agenda and figure out where it's going to come in, where her issue will be dealt with this evening. I have footage from that Airshow crash in Michigan involving that Russian MiG. We'll take a look at that. And what else do we have for you tonight? Censorship. The mainstream media in Canada now being, well, the news media being blocked, us included, but the mainstream media also being blocked now. And of course, they're making a big deal out of it because, hey, man, they're not used to being blocked and censored, but because of Bill C-18 in Canada, on Facebook, blocked. So we'll take a look at that as well. In this case, the mainstream media making the story all about them. Yes. And auto workers. It's negotiation time, and things are pretty dicey because the situation facing auto workers right now, it's not like it's ever been before. And so they're heading into negotiations with the big three automakers, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, in both Canada and the US. And they are, they're facing off. It's, well, we won't get too deep into it tonight, but I'll tell you, it's not looking great. It's not looking great. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start, I think, with the Airshow crash, and we'll tell you what happened there over the weekend. So stay with me. We'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and let's just dip in on that council meeting. Still not quite fired up over there, but we'll dip back into that coverage. This Airshow crash, a pair was two people taken to hospital, but they escaped serious injury when they ejected from a vintage MiG-23 Russian over the weekend. So this Soviet fighter plane crashed into a car park and hit a bunch of empty vehicles at a nearby apartment complex in Belleville, about 30 miles west of Detroit. No injuries were reported at the apartments or the air show, which was hosted by the Yankee Air Museum in Belleville. The pilot and a backseater crew member did not appear to have any significant injuries, but they were taken to hospital. And I know that the National Transportation Safety Board is investigating this. This all happened yesterday. I have footage. Here of the crash and the ejection. Here we go. Let me bring this up for you. Really, really scary stuff. It's a miracle, honestly, a miracle that nobody was seriously hurt in this incident. And everybody's talking about it today. Here we go. Here's what it looked like yesterday. There's the Russian jet. Now look at this. Bam. And the plane comes down. Fortunately, the two occupants managed to eject. How about another angle on that? I think we have one here. Yeah. Let me bring this up. Second angle, this shows where the, I believe this will show us as well where the location was when the jet actually crashed, the site of the actual crash. Here we go. Now, there it is. Very fortunate didn't hit these houses in this residential area. It's coming down. And out they go.
For the flyby with the prop jobs.
What do you do? Like stall out or?
He was just flying too low. But then you heard the pop. I wonder.
So apparently there was, from all the reports that I got today about this, there was an engine failure on the jet. Now it looked, some people were saying there was an explosion, but in reality, what you were seeing there was the explosive charges that took the canopy off to allow the two people in the jet to eject. So there was an engine failure. Then, relying on the training that they had, they were able to eject with only seconds to react. And when they did eject, the plane was then out of control and it just went down and crashed in that parking lot. Very fortunate that it didn't hit any houses. Some people, of course, now opining on this, wondering if air shows should even be held. Yet statistically, we know that air shows are actually very safe overall. But sometimes mishaps, accidents do happen. And that was the case yesterday in Michigan at this air show. Interesting jet. Great air show overall. It's been going on for a number of years, long time, with a solid safety record. But this particular jet yesterday, for whatever reason, went down, and the National Transportation Safety Board investigating, and we will learn more, I'm sure, in the days ahead. And again, very fortunate that nobody was seriously injured in that crash. Very scary stuff. Now tonight again, here we go. I think we've got some action going on here on the Rhonda Jubenville incident. Here we go.
Position that is biased or discriminatory. I submit that these charges be sustained for two reasons. First, the charges are based on a factual misrepresentation, which is that Ms. Jubenville's position on flag raising is discriminatory. It is not. It is based on the principle of equality. Either every group should have a right to hoist a flag on public property, or no group should. No one should have special privileges. My second objection to the charges is that the commissioner has used the code section on confidentiality to shield the identity of the complainants and to prevent us from knowing the factual basis for their complaints. That, in my view, is what makes the allegations defamatory. If we were in a court of law, I could bring a motion to have this case dismissed for lack of evidence. So what is going on here? Some people disagree with Ms. Jubenville's political views because they find them offensive. So they've used the code of conduct and the commissioner to try to shut down her right to freedom of expression, which is guaranteed to everybody in this country under Section 2B, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And that is fundamentally wrong. The Supreme Court has held that the state cannot censor expression simply because some people find it offensive. That's because freedom of expression protects the pursuit of the truth in all matters. And we pay a price for that. We have to put up with novel ideas that might offend us or anger us because they call into question strongly held opinions and beliefs. But that's okay according to the Supreme Court. Those new ideas, which come to us through minority opinions, might assist us in getting to the truth of the matter, even if we decide to reject those ideas at the end of the day. The court has emphasized that allowing novel ideas into our public discourse is absolutely essential to the debate and deliberation that allows elected officials to make sound public policy decisions. In that sense, it is directly connected to the perfection of democratic government. So when we decide to unfairly limit freedom of expression, we are subverting democracy itself. Someone once said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That means good intentions are not good enough. They must also produce good results. The confidentiality section in the Code of Conduct has empowered the Integrity Commissioner to attack Ms. Jubenville's reputation and shut down her right to freedom of expression without any foundation in law or fact. In that sense, it has undermined our most fundamental democratic ideals. That, I submit, is one version of hell, and I urge you in this meeting today to reject it.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Now we'll hear from Mary Ellen Bench, the Integrity Commissioner for Chatham-Kent.
This is the flag issue.
Thank you.
They want to punish Rhonda Jubenville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and
her
members of council,
motion.
for the opportunity to attend today and to respond to any questions you may have concerning my report. I need to clarify a few things. My report is not about policy. Today's discussion is not about policy. The Municipal Act requires every municipality to adopt a code of conduct and to appoint an independent integrity commissioner who is responsible for interpreting and the provisions of the code, for training council related to the code, and for responding to council inquiries about the provisions in the code of conduct. The role of a municipal councillor is complicated, and the code adds guidance to assist members of council in carrying out their duties as a public official. When the Integrity Commissioner investigates an alleged breach of the Code of Conduct, the Integrity Commissioner applies the language in the code against the allegations made and conducts any required independent investigation to determine independently whether or not the Code of Conduct has been breached. We've talked about this in our training sessions. Where there has been determined by the Integrity Commission that there has been a breach in the Code of Conduct, I must recommend whether or not a penalty is in order within the limits set out in the Municipal Act. Council cannot change the independent findings of the Integrity Commissioner that a breach has occurred. However, Council may determine that a different penalty is in order, including no penalty. The subject matter of my report presented the need to determine the actions and remarks of Councillor Jubenville against the provisions of the code. It is not about flag raising. It is not about emotion. It is not about pride or Christian beliefs or family or any of the other matters raised in the emails and phone calls submitted by members of the public to me, or the matters referenced by council for Councillor Jubenville. It is also not about the notice of motion submitted by Councillor Jubenville, and I can say very clearly that I have no concerns whatsoever with the contents of her motion. I have told the councillor that before the motion was brought to the council floor. I also have no concerns with the motion that was ultimately adopted by council. The policy debate will happen next month, and that is not a matter that is in the jurisdiction of the Integrity Commissioner. My report addresses findings with respect to social media posts and actions taken by Councillor Jubenville, which are detailed in it, and nothing more than that. I've spoken with the councillor, I've read the submissions of her legal counsel, and I've also read and listened to members of the public who support her views on various issues. My investigation and my report required me to assess her comments against the Code of Conduct, which is a limitation on free speech that members of council have determined by themselves is an appropriate limit. You determine what is in the Code of Conduct, and in doing so, you agree to abide by it. The code requires that all members of council must be aware and consider the impact their comments have on the values held by council as a whole and on the rights of others, among other things. Free speech is a complex topic, and while the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees free speech, it also provides for limitations that are found in the rights of others, and they're found in the laws and the ethical rules that bind us over and above what is in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And the Chatham-Kent Council Code of Conduct is one set of ethical rules that applies specifically to members of council. And as I've said, it was developed and approved by members of council, not by other levels of government. So it reflects your values. The Municipal Act speaks to the role of council. It does not speak to the role of individual councillors. However, the province has, in the materials that we have discussed in education sessions, and I've earlier directed council to, set out the three main roles that individual councillors have. The first is a representative role. There is no single correct approach to how to represent your constituents. The province acknowledges that. You determine that in your role, and you determine the breadth of how you see that role. You also have a policy-making role, which is the role you play in this council chambers. You identify issues, you engage the public, you seek input from professional staff, you reach agreement or at least majority consensus on a best course of action, and you vote on policy direction for staff to implement. Third, you play a stewardship role. You ensure that the municipality's resources are being used as efficiently as possible. It's the mayor's job under the Municipal Act to chair meetings and provide leadership to council to carry out these roles. And it's the role of councillors to work with the mayor and each other to fulfill the role of council as a whole that are set out in the Municipal Act and make the decisions that council believes are appropriate. In doing so, social media is an important tool, and Councillor Jubenville uses it very well to provide content about municipal matters, matters coming before council, council decisions, and other topics that she deems worthy or appropriate to post. And this is not a criticism. I've said that in my report. Many councillors in many communities, including many others on this council, use social media very effectively as a tool to share information with their communities. I've also noted in the council education sessions that councillors are expected to solicit feedback from and participate with the community and use the information that you glean from community members in making your decisions about what your community needs. I provided a detailed memo to council some months ago respecting the use of social media, and perhaps it is time to have a specific reference to that added to the code.
Just to make it clear, the reason she ended up reviewing the social media posts was because of the flag issue to be is front and center here.
Her posts ideally appropriate under the Code of Conduct. We are here to discuss the ones where I have concerns. Councillor Jubenville, I believe, is well aware of the significance of her role as a public official and also of the influence she wields through her comments and posts. I have viewed her social media sites that are public accessible. Some of them are not. They all have her photo as a counselor. So to me, that says you're playing your role as a public official. I can't determine what the ones that are closed to the public say, even though they have that photo. And again, as I said, the majority of the posts do not raise a concern regarding the code of conduct to me. Freedom of speech does not allow anyone in society a complete and unobstructed right to say anything they want. We learn that as children, we learn that in our workplace, we learn that throughout our life. Speech is limited by laws that protect us against hate and defamation as well, whether it's libel or slander. My report does not address these legal constraints because they're not the subject matter of my role and they're not the subject matter of my report.
Then get to the
Council
point.
has
Tell us
cited
what
key
the,
cases on these matters,
get to the
but
point.
has not addressed the code of conduct. None of the cases cited involve municipal councilors or codes of conduct or the role of the integrity commissioner. You'll find those in my report.
She's dancing around
It
this.
is not within my authority to determine if a post broke those rules either. If it was a hate matter, then I have an obligation to refer it to the police. I have not seen anything that crosses that line. If it's a libel and slander matter, that's a civil matter and is totally outside of my jurisdiction and does not get referred anywhere.
Tell us
My
what the issue
focus
is then.
strictly on assessing posts against the Chatham-Kent Council Code of Conduct. That is my mandate. And my report sets out, as I said, some of the key decisions on those matters that where the court has considered them. So for clarity, some of the posts that raise concerns and are mentioned in my reports are topics that are not directly concerning municipal matters, especially some of them regarding flags on school properties and activities within schools. However, as a public official and given the matters before council, they have sufficient nexus to Councillor Jubenville's role as councillor to make them fall within my mandate as regards the code only. And finally, I want to address some of the comments submitted to you in writing by council for Councillor Jubenville with respect to my report. It's unfortunate that council does not recognize the role of the council code of conduct because I think that is critical to assessing my report. All of these limitations are required, as I've said, and are put in place by this council. Council alleges that I've said he breached the code, and I want to clarify to him and others that that is not the case. The code only applies to members of council and members of the boards noted by the municipality in the code of conduct. So I'm very sorry if that was not clear. Council also states that my report is not supported by law. However, as I've said, he's failed to address the law that applies to interpreting council code of conducts, whether it's the municipal act or whether it's case law. And council has made several references in writing and verbally today to my refusal to identify complainants. For reasons set out in my report and given the positions that have been taken in communications to members of council respecting this matter, I continue to remain concerned for the safety of the individuals if I were to make their names public. Given comments that were directed to me personally through emails as well as telephone calls, some of which I have quoted in my report, I have to be honest and tell you today that I was concerned enough about my own safety that I asked for police to be present at tonight's meeting. I've also said in my report why Councillor Jubenville bears responsibility for the conduct of others. Because as a public official, when those matters are brought to your attention, you have an obligation to make those matters fit within council, to explain them, to try and work together as a council to determine those matters. I will not repeat what I've said in my report. Final matter I need to address is the references council has made to potential legal actions against me or against Chatham-Kent. Whether alleged or not, it is always open to any individual to take legal action against another matter, whether it's a person or a corporation. The case law cited in my report are exactly these situations. And I have to submit for members of council that this should not be a factor in council's consideration of the recommendations in my report. So those are my comments. I am open to any questions you may have regarding the report.
Thank you, Ms. Bench, for your report and answering the questions that I'm sure others and myself have trying to save some time and help us get through this unfortunate situation. You've answered all the questions that I had, and I just want to be clear, this was not about the flag raising, the flag motion. That's where it's turned, and freedom of speech and democracy and everything else, but that's not what this was about. I sent in a motion. Judy or Meredith, if you could put that up, please. So I move that Councillor Jubenville's remuneration be suspended for a period of 3 months. And number 2, that the 90 days cover pay periods commencing September 1st, 2023 and consecutively through October and November 2023 until the 90 days is complete. If I could get a seconder.
So seconded.
Yep, I have some comments, and I'm going to apologize because I wrote them out. I think most of you know I don't write what I'm going to say, but I wanted to stay on track because this is very important. So I'm not alone in feeling that this is an absolutely awful position to be put in, to have to make a decision like this against a fellow councillor. And I'm going to start, but also, this is our job too. We've been told what our job is and what we're supposed to be doing, but this is our job too. And it's not a very pleasant part of it. I want to start with a quote from one of the greatest civil rights leaders of our time. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. This is a quote from Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. This can be interpreted in many ways, and I'm sure that I'll hear different interpretations, but I believe Martin Luther King believed that silence against the wrongs that in any form against our fellow human beings begins to lead to steps backwards instead of moving forward in our inclusive community that we're hoping to build, and for Chatham-Kent and all people. I thought about this long and hard. This was not easy, and at first I thought 3 months is pretty harsh. But then, after listening to the interviews, the podcasts, reviewing the report over and over, I realized there was no acknowledgement or self-awareness about the harm that's been caused through this. And the harm that's caused by words and actions from Councillor Jubenville. And I'm sorry to say that. I also questioned who we are as a community when I was contemplating where we're going to go with this. Who do we want to be? Who do we want to reflect ourselves as a council for our community? Who are we as leaders? And then it made me question, who am I? What do I stand for? When I sit here, my beliefs, who do I bring to this table? There's a lot of emails about free speech, and free speech, like Ms. Bench said, is not, there's consequences to free speech. We can all say anything we want, wherever we want, but there's consequences. We are elected officials and we put ourselves here The day that we put ourselves on that ballot, we put ourselves in that position. And the second that we were moved forward to this seat, we are accountable to the public. We are accountable to that code of conduct, and we have the obligation to uphold the integrity of this position. When we don't hold ourselves accountable, then we are subject to complaints being brought against us through the Integrity Commission. And I hope, and possibly even an investigation. And if that happened to me, I would hope that I would learn from it and it became a learning experience. We need to have awareness and accountability of the power in our words and our position. We can use them productively in our community, or we can use them to create harm. And that's very easy if we do not. This is not about the flag. That motion was done. This is about attempts at bullying and intimidating behaviors that followed. I've heard some interviews that if we don't vote in favor of Councillor Jubenville, that she's going to have a difficult time working with us. And I hope that's not true, because we have a long term ahead of us, and democracy works best when we all work together. This is unfortunate, and I hope that we all learn and we move forward. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. I hope that we all learn from this. This is not a good position for any of us. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, then Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I don't suppose I can say it much better than Councillor Crew, and I did want to note that through this process, councillors have accountability to the public. So that accountability doesn't just happen every 4 years at the ballot box. It's something we have to be aware of for the whole time that we are here. The Integrity Commissioner's report contains serious findings: improper use of influence, bullying, and intimidation. And we have to take those seriously. And as Councillor Cruz said, this is an unfortunate part of our role, but sends an important message to the community. I did want to point out that this space that we're in today is a public space, and it should feel safe. And I'm sorry that the Integrity Commissioner has found that this important space in our community is not safe. Governing is challenging. Disagreement is natural. It should happen. I believe around this horseshoe we have a long history of facing challenging issues. And through my time here in 9 years, I've often disagreed with many people that I sit beside and call friends. But we have to find a way to do that respectfully, and we have to find a way to do that in respecting our community. And I hope that through this process that we will learn to do that again, and that we'll recognize how to move forward. So with that, thank you for your time.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Worship. Couldn't echo any better than the previous two, but I've spent the last week drafting up something that I think needed to say. And first off, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who emailed, called, or stopped me in the stores to discuss this report. There were many who supported both sides. I read every email and listened to every person who called or approached me, as I believe this is one of our roles as council. I would also like to state that contrary to a lot of the messages I've received, I am not against Councillor Jubenville and her beliefs of her right to freedom of speech. I believe I am also a Christian who has a relationship with God, having found myself having hundreds of heartfelt conversations with him over the last 35 years. The right of freedom of speech applies to everyone, whether you agree with what they have to say or not. I commend Councillor Jubenville and her courage and strength to speak up for her followers and beliefs. I also commend those who spoke up explaining their thoughts and beliefs to me. Sometimes this does not come easy. I also believe that it is not about the flag raising motion, as the majority of the emails suggested. This was already discussed and voted on, and policy was to be drafted. And when that report comes back, we can then discuss and fine-tune to ensure all groups that qualify can apply to have their flag raised, as this I have found to be very important to every organization that has done it in the past. To me, this is about the Integrity Commissioner's report and her findings, and about my view of what it means to be a councillor. Thank you, Mary Ellen,
So this
for
is
your
supposed
report
to be
and your
about
time
Rhonda
spent doing the
Jubenville's social
investigation.
media posts.
I know that this is not an easy task and takes time looking at all information
You're
that is
saying that
submitted to you.
she was
I know
bullying
from
and
my own
harassing
involvement being
people.
a subject of a complaint, You're
We'll
thorough
take a look
and
at her
listen to all
Facebook page in
sides
a
before
moment.
making a conclusion. When I was elected, I became a part of a team. As part of this team, I must consider all sides and debate on what is best for all residents, not just those that may have voted for me or those in my ward. If we lose sight of working as a team, our team not only fails, but so does our municipality. If I do not understand an item, I may contact a councillor if outside of Chatham or administration and ask questions to clarify my concerns. If undecided, I may ask councillors their opinions or listen during debate to help, but I never question their vote. It is their vote. I will not always agree with decisions made, but in the end, I must accept and work together to show what can be accomplished. I ran for council to not only be a voice, but also a listener for those that felt unheard. I have over 30 years as an officer and 5 on council kept true to this. I also know that people listen to my words when talking, and those words I believe must be a fact and not my own opinions or beliefs. My words must also be kind. I use social media both for personal and council business. I believe anyone can post what they wish, but I believe I must follow rules as some people put us to a higher standard because of our position. We represent everyone, and therefore my post must not contain hateful or hurtful or threatening words. This also applies to anyone who may comment on my post. I may not have written those words, but I believe that if I leave the comments posted, that it reflects on how I may be seen by others. They may believe that I agree with the comments as written, as I have allowed them to remain. It is my responsibility, in my opinion, to reflect and show that I am unbiased and will treat everyone equally no matter where they live or who they are. We all have the right to freedom of speech and are able to express our thoughts and beliefs. We have a right to live our lives without judgment and to be a part of an inclusive community. I, however, believe we do not have the right to be hurtful of someone or judge them. Saying hurtful or hateful things is a bully tactic, in my opinion, and shows a form of discrimination or bias. I believe as a councillor, we must remain unbiased, but informed, and then make a decision on what we believe to be the best for all residents based on the facts that are known. We must also stick to items that are under our control. Items dealing with school or educational curriculum are not our responsibility, as there are elected officials that can be spoken to. In closing, I'd like to say that I accept the Integrity Commissioner's report as written. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Ms. Bench, nice to see you again. We've met under similar circumstances once, not that long ago. I'd just like to start with sort of some housekeeping things. Do we know what the cost of this investigation will be approximately when it's over? Just, I'm sure the public's curious.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As indicated in the report, we have gotten an invoice from Ms. Bench for January to June. This particular one started in April, so we've accounted for that in the financials. I think it was roughly 13,000, but we haven't gotten July and August invoice yet.
So I can assume we'll probably hit $20,000 on this one. Okay, that's an assumption, but whatever. So there's other billings in play. I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the
$20,000 to check out her
are there other
Facebook page and
investigations
issue a report.
currently? No? Okay. Now, on to the investigation itself. I have to disagree with probably most people sitting here that the accusers cannot be identified. I think this is patently wrong. When I had my go around with this, I was asked to apologize. And of course, my question was, well, to who? And I wasn't given that information. So I don't think it's fair. You know, you learn as a kid that the accused will, or the accused will face their, sorry, I'm getting that wrong. But you will face your accuser. That's what I was looking for. And that's not the case here. So to me, the real problem I have with that is that I can say something, and if I'm anonymous and my source is anonymous, that seems to run contrary to our entire judicial system. It's hearsay. Well, I said this person said this. Well, who was that person? Oh, I can't tell you. Well, in a normal court of law, like the other counselor said, it would just be thrown out. You could just say whatever you want about anybody. And if you don't like somebody, well, that's going to be a problem for them because there's zero accountability. I can just say I heard this or I heard that. And I know there's an investigation. You're going to look into it and make sure it's not completely bogus. But in any event, for me to have the ability to accuse somebody on council of something and having total anonymity, to me, it just opens up a floodgate of vendettas could happen. I'm not saying that's the case here today, but like I disagreed with it in my investigation years ago, and I still stand by that. So a question, would a request for information, would that information be available? Sorry, yeah.
That's a question more for your legal department. But in terms of the
Sorry, freedom of information, that's what I meant.
yeah, so that's a question for your legal department. I don't provide legal advice.
Oh, okay, Dave.
But to your other point about not being able to meet what the person says you're accused of, that is why you have all the attachments to the report with the screenshots of the emails. So the written record is there. The written record was provided by Councillor Jubenville for the most part, the matters that were a concern. So you do have that actual record of what exactly was said.
Yeah, but not of the people that brought forward the complaint, because to me, some of those posts weren't offensive at all. I didn't bring a complaint, but that was my point. I understand what you're saying, that you can see what you're looking at, but my point is that the accusers are held in a mystery box, and that's what I disagree with. And of course, you don't agree with me, and that's okay. I get that. It's all right. So, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Taylor, Director of Legal Services. The question is whether or not this would be disclosed if there was a Freedom of Information request made under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That would require some analysis, Councillor. However, preliminarily, I would say it would be unlikely to be disclosed. Normally, when we're disclosing records from the municipality, one of the things that is removed is personal information about individuals. And so names are often removed and redacted anyways before records are released. So if you're asking about whether those records would result in the name being disclosed, likely no.
Okay, that's a no. All right. Now on to the actual allegations. I've read everything. I saw a lot of this stuff as it was posted, and frankly, I don't think it was really that offensive. Maybe I'm a little older and thicker skinned than some, I guess, but I see that some people could be offended, and in today's society, that's just a terrible thing, and we have to take action. But I didn't see anything threatening or anything that was terribly misguided. What I see happening here today, unfortunately, we've read about freedom of speech and expression in a lot of emails, and we've heard from the different lawyers. But to me, if this passes, I'm afraid that we're being asked to not have an opinion. And I've even heard that our opinion can affect others. Well, I sure hope so. That's why I have one. And now, frankly, I'll be quite honest. Like, I'd be concerned about posting, that I like the Montreal Canadiens over the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, is that going to offend somebody? Like, where does this thing go? Like, to me, it's freedom of speech. I think it sends a terrible message. And the penalty, which is the maximum penalty that can be given out for this, to me, is like remarkable. Like, I was given, please write a little apology. And I think I was worse meaner than Rhonda. But, well, no, not that we want to bring mine up again. But yeah, I'm afraid that if this passes, really, council will be intimidated to say anything. Like, I heard something about, we are responsible for the actions of others. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not responsible unless I directly tell Bob to punch Harry in the face. I'm not responsible for other people's actions. What Rhonda did is she reposted things. For the most part, what I saw, of course, I didn't analyze it like you did, of course, because you're getting paid to do it. But what I saw was things that were her opinion. And if we're not allowed to do that, I think we're in trouble. Like, I have an opinion, and I know even in the code of conduct, it says councillors will support decisions of council. and that's our obligation. So I do have a question for you regarding that, and it ties into this. If council votes to build a bridge and I vote against it, I go to the coffee shop the next day, I guess I'm expected to say, I'm happy we're doing this. Like, are we, no, I get where you're probably going to go that, you know, what you're saying is we have to support the decision of council, which I believe Councillor Jubenville did do, but I don't know that she has to say, I agree with it.
No, and we've talked about this in training. What you have to say is, this is the council decision. You can say you disagree with it, but you can't disrespect that decision.
Right, and that's what I didn't see, was that she disrespected. I saw that she disagreed with it, which of course, so did I, because I voted for her motion. But now, you know, going forward with this, I'm afraid, you know, I better be very, very careful as to what I say. And that's terrible, because this is a public forum and we should be given, you know, the same ability as anybody else when it comes to free speech, which seems to be, to me, becoming somewhat undermined here. And this sets a precedent that this could happen to, especially a guy like me that talks before he thinks sometimes. But, you know, I'm afraid that this is just, it's sending a very bad message. And the whole freedom thing's been a big topic in this country for a couple of years now. And to me, this is just another kind of hit at it. So I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor C. McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just start off, thanks, Mary Ellen, for coming here. I would also like to agree with most of what Councillor Bondi said. So I just want a couple things in the report itself that I just wanted to go over. Mary Ellen, you said Councillor Jubenville made several comments to me concerning actions by another member of council to speak to other councillors to persuade them not to support her flag motion. She said that councillors were being told she was anti-Black and anti-LGBTQ and felt that I should be taking action to stop this. I've invited Councillor Jubenville to make formal complaint about this, but to date have not received one. Councillor Jubenville has told me that she has never made any LGBTQ comments. And then it goes on a little bit more. So I was the one who told her that another councillor had called me during the flag motion and said that they tried to convince me that the flag motion was because she was anti-Black, she was anti-LGBTQ, and that's what the motion was about, even though everybody in here that saw the email chain knows that the motion was about the pro-life flag. So to me, that councillor was trying to bully and intimidate other councillors if that person called more than me to try to get them to vote against her motion. So they're now the one doing the bullying and things against Councillor Jubenville, and she told you that. She told you who the councillor was that said these things. She told you that I was the one that told her that this phone call was to me. And then later on in your report, you say,
if you're going to later on, if I can address that, that's why I invited her to provide me with that evidence.
But
to respond to it.
But she told you who the counselor was and who told her that. So all you do is phone
Yeah,
her.
no, I didn't have names, but I did invite her to file a complaint to provide me with some.
Okay, well, I was told that she said
and
names,
even now, if I receive that, I can deal with it. But I am not dealing with verbal complaints.
But so then later on, it says in here, it says again, Councillor Jubenville was invited to provide evidence where she was bullied, abused, or intimidated, and no such evidence has been presented to me. No, and then you said, I have noted that in carrying out my independent research, there are negative comments posted about Councillor Jubenville, some of which are disturbing. No such comments have been made by members of council, and therefore they are outside my jurisdiction. But there was ones made by council, 2 other councillors that were bullying and intimidating.
I have never seen those. I have never been provided with copies of those. I invited the counselor to provide them to me. I have not received them.
I didn't record the phone call, sorry.
No, not from you. It was Councillor Jubenville who raised the issue with me, and I invited her to provide them. I don't have them.
But how is she supposed to get a recorded phone call that, like if the phone call is never recorded, how do you get proof from that?
Well, you write the conversation in an email. Give me something. I
Okay.
have
So,
nothing in writing.
okay, so I'll just keep going then.
Oh, we've got some
Um,
freezing here. There we go.
The person that was on the phone with me, this was then the third time that this counselor has phoned me and had said things and brought up things about Counselor Jubenville. These started a long time ago, and I know that Counselor Jubenville has been. This isn't her first time she was investigated, and I know the very first time the counselor called me and said something was the first thing that she was investigated on. So I'm not going to say who the person is.
Yeah.
I won't.
No,
I won't say that. But
this is the first and only investigation.
okay.
It's not the first complaint, but it's the first investigation.
Okay. So the first complaint. So that the first investigation, but the other complaints that didn't go anywhere were coming from potentially a specific counselor. I'm not going to say names because I can't verify it. But that counselor also mentioned to me on multiple phone calls that they were upset that they were blocked on Facebook, and they were emotionally hurt that they were blocked on Facebook. So now, do we potentially have a counselor with a vendetta against another one because they were emotionally hurt because they were blocked on Facebook? And now and this price is getting pretty high, as we've seen. So now they're sending you all this stuff because they have a vendetta against Counselor Jubenville, and now they're going to keep throwing stuff at you until you have enough to make your report. Like, even if we go through some of these,
Rhonda Jubenville.
attachments
That's the counselor's name. She's been
You're
on this
making a
show.
lot of allegations that are new information, and I have nothing in writing even to today's date that supports that. So that is outside of the scope of my report. It is outside of the scope of the purpose of today's meeting.
Okay, well, I will kind of agree to disagree if we have hearsay over whether she told you the names or not, because that's a pretty big difference. Like some of these attachments, like they're not even offensive at all. So I'm just wondering why all of them got in there when, yeah, like the one that she's thanking people for the support, attachment 5. Thank you to the counselors who voted for her. Like what's wrong with that one specifically?
You'll have to tie it back to the paragraph in the report that it's tied to.
Oh, that's gonna take too long. So I guess what I'm asking, there's multiple screenshots in here, and that person also told me on the phone they have screenshots, and I'm guessing that they probably, and I can't say this for certain, but how the 3 different phone calls went to me over the phone, I'm guessing I wasn't the only counselor that person was talking to. So now they're going around potentially spreading false information about Rhonda to try to get people to side with them. So to me, that is something that should have been included in here, which it didn't, and now we have hearsay over whether the names were said or not. So, like some of these screenshots, why are they all in here? Like, are they all saying that she's being bullied and intimidating? Because some of them are just like Bonnie says, I'm not sure why they're even in here in the first place.
I've explained in my report against each attachment why they're included in there.
Okay. Okay, attachment 3 then. It just says attachment 3 is a post by Councillor Jubenville, references a CBC article titled "The Ontario Township Votes to Exclude Pride Flags on Municipal Property," in which she adds her comments. I wish CK Council felt the same. I know from the support, prayers, emails, messages, and phone calls, Chatham-Kent wanted to only fly government flags. Good for Norwich. This makes sense to me. That's the only thing specific about there. The one thing I will say is I went and I actually read that whole article. And to me, that headline there is clickbait to try to get people to click on it, because in the actual article itself, it talks about them banning all flags, not just pride flags. So to her, how is she going to post that another council did the same thing she was trying to do without posting that? And the headline doesn't go along with what she's saying. That's just the headline of the article. So to me, like, that's another, like, why is that in here? Did we follow through and read the whole article and see that the whole article is about exactly what her motion was about? Or is it just a screenshot
I
that somebody
can
sent?
assure you, I read the whole article of every article, I've listened to podcasts, I've listened to all kinds of stuff related to those matters. Yes.
Okay. So just wondering why it's in here then. If the whole article has to do just with her motion, why did it get in here? I guess that's why I'm asked. I just read you exactly why it was in here.
I felt it was appropriate to include it.
Okay. So we didn't follow up, and some things that because in my opinion, the whole article should have been included in this, if that was included, because this is biased, in my opinion. It paints her with a bad brush that if you read the article, it wouldn't have. So I guess that's where I'm going. I agree with Councillor Bondi. I think this is a pretty big punishment for her actions. I think this is that she was elected. There's a big group of people that elected her in Chatham Kent, and a lot of them are happy with how she's been doing. So to me, she's not everybody gets along. Not everybody has the same opinions, but to me, she's doing exactly what she was elected to do and to represent her constituents. So to me, to punish her for that doesn't make sense. So I can't support that.
Councillor C. McGregor, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I have some remarks to make, but I just, if I could ask Mrs. Bench just some clarification from Councillor Doyle's comments. How many times has Councillor Jubenville been investigated? If I can ask that question.
Once.
Thank you. Okay. So I do have some comments here. So, and I have written mine out also, so I kind of can stay on track. So, you know, at this time, we find ourselves in a difficult position where accusations of undemocratic behavior and suppression of freedom of speech have been made against our council. To address these concerns, I've conducted my own research on democracy and freedom of speech. I have read and reread the Integrity Commissioner's report and the report from Councillor Jubenville's lawyer. And I'll share a condensed version of this and some of my personal experiences since last year. Democracy is a system of government where power is vested in the people, allowing them to participate in decision-making. Freedom of speech, a fundamental right in a democratic society, comes with responsibilities such as respecting others, being honest, offering constructive criticism, and embracing tolerance and pluralism. While freedom of speech is important, it can be abused through hate speech, disinformation, and incitement of violence. In our case, individuals supporting Councillor Jubenville have spread false rumors and engaged in character assassination of other councillors. Freedom of speech does not protect individuals making false statements that harm someone's reputation or inciting violence. In Ontario, integrity commissioners are independent officers appointed by municipal governments to promote ethical conduct and accountability among elected officials and employees. They investigate complaints, offer advice and guidance, and recommend disciplinary action for code of conduct violations. And I say recommend. Personally, I have faced threats and intimidations that have led to concerns for my own personal safety due to my stance on vaccination policy, the flag raising policy, and now the Integrity Commissioner's recommendations with supporters of Councillor Jubenville making me feel at times unsafe in my own community. How sad is that? I've been a politician for 20 years and volunteering in my community for over 30, trying to make my community a better place to live and work in, a place where our children can be raised without discrimination. During the flag raising motion debate, her supporters disrupted our council proceedings, continually being asked not to interrupt. They made nasty comments when they did not agree with the conversation. They shoved councillors' chairs, and when the motion was defeated, even spit on councillors. This raises serious concerns and questions about the democracy and freedom of speech. Tonight, we have to address the Integrity Commissioner's recommendations, and because of that, I've been subject to bullying and intimidation, including threats of lawsuits. I've been told that I'll burn in hell, that I'm a servant and I should act as such. Her supporters have told people to get in my face if I'm seen out in my own community, only to be replied to on social media, "Oh, not to worry, she will get hers." Again, how sad that we cannot have open debate without fear of retribution. Despite not filing a complaint myself, I have provided information to the Integrity Commissioner and concerning what has become a lack of the ability to have open, free debate in our chamber. I will support the recommendations of the Integrity Commissioner. This behavior needs to end. In summary, we are facing a challenging situation with accusations of undemocratic behavior and suppression of freedom of speech. It is crucial to uphold democratic values and promote ethical conduct, which is the role of the Integrity Commissioners. My experience alone highlights the need for respectful discourse and importance of protecting individuals from harm and intimidation. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. A lot of my comments, a lot of my questions have been asked. I did want to ask Ms. Bench a couple of questions. We had a brief email correspondence regarding perhaps not this issue specifically, but perhaps the broader issue of bullying. Can you and I speak to that here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you remember what you asked me?
To be honest, no.
You asked me if I ever felt intimidated to the point where I couldn't speak. Do you remember what I said?
I think
no, it's okay.
Best for you to answer.
That's fine. I said I am a 42-year-old white man who came that night prepared for violence. Do you think that's a reasonable position to take as a counselor?
You shouldn't have to be in that situation.
No, but I certainly was. And again, I was prepared to read in the newspaper that Councillor Thompson got into a fist fight in the hallway to defend his ability to speak because somebody behind us called us sissies on his way out. I called him a coward. I was ready to meet him out there if that came down to it. It's not the right thing to do, but I was prepared to. The attempted bullying has continued, and to be honest, it doesn't bother me. Feel free to send your emails. I enjoy each and every one of them, and I save them. We've heard from an awful lot of people involved in not involved in the incidents over the last few weeks. There's a very good show of force here tonight, too. But I did want to share, what a few Blenheim students shared with me. Students that didn't feel comfortable giving a deputation tonight had they been allowed to. Students that didn't want their names shared. People who didn't feel comfortable coming this evening in anticipation of the makeup of this crowd. I feel unsafe knowing there are this many people in my community who feel this way about the LGBTQ+. It pains me to know that the cops were called on a school for showing their support for the LGBTQ community. I hate it how people think they can do this with no consequences. Hang on just a moment, I have a few others. When I heard the principal was getting flooded with hateful, inappropriate messages on her email that had to do with the pride flag, I felt hurt that someone like that was really willing to go out of their way like that and hurt others just because they had to make sure everyone knew and understood how they felt, whether it be right or wrong. I can assure you that some things, whether it be little or big, are just better left unsaid. There are many people in my school that question, why bother doing something like Councillor Jubenville did that day? There were so many people that were hurt, even disappointed and saddened, that someone in power could use that power to act in a bullying manner. Pride Month is especially not the time to be expressing yourself in that way. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to hurt someone else in the way that was done. The fact that you saw the pride flag flying on the same post as the Canada flag is not an enforced law, nor does it really matter all that much. There are no other flag posts to put it on, so even if we wanted to, we couldn't have. The other thing that made this so much worse, though, is to have been the sheer number of people that agreed with Councillor Jubenville. What happened to loving others and inclusion, not hating on others or excluding them from the rest. And I have one final one here that I'd like to share. I am writing in regards to the post that Councillor Jubenville posted on social media in regards to my school flying the progress flag. Her post was unjust and disrespectful to the school and the municipality as part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. She asked individuals if they felt passionate about flying of the pride flag on the same pole as the Canada flag to communicate directly with the school. The line actually caused a lot of commotion in our small town and our small rural school. Threats were made. Students like myself felt very uncomfortable and fearful to be in attendance at school. I myself, being a very open lesbian, felt fearful and did not attend school for 3 days following this incident. Our beloved principal and teachers who support us with inclusion and diversity were threatened. Police were needed to be in attendance. As a student and an open member of the 2S LGBTQ plus community, I find it a shame that all this started because a counselor who isn't even in our riding or area made our little school her scapegoat for a bigger reason in her thoughts. And counselors in our area are very inclusive and supportive of our small school and community. Our teachers who support our Gay Straight Alliance family was also attacked by this counselor's supporters for standing up for our school's right to fly the flag and support the reconciliation of pride. Counselor Jubenville still at this time doesn't feel she did anything wrong. But from a 16-year-old perspective, I can honestly say I thought adults knew better than to openly tell someone to directly communicate their dismay in a hurtful manner. It was a progress flag hung on our flagpole. There were many other flags that flown for different occasions underneath our Canadian flag. The French flag flies for a month on other school flagpoles at times. No fuss was made over them. This councilwoman made me feel like I am a problem. My sexuality is a problem, and my mere month of honoring my pride and appealing for inclusion is a problem. Please tell me how the people who are here to help make Chatham-Kent and be a voice of our community can stand by and say asking for impassion and disrespect is allowed. As a student, my school should be a safe space, and I should never feel like I should need to hide who I am just to feel safe in an environment where we as students don't judge each other. And I suppose I will support this. I'm no stranger to the Integrity Commissioner investigative process. I made headlines last term. I certainly have a level of sympathy for those in the process. It's very easy to become defensive. But I also grew. I spoke to those that were upset that I upset. I apologize for the pain I caused, and I have worked hard to do better. To cravenly hide behind one of Canada's most sacred pieces of legislation, threaten legal action, and refuse to learn and admit any level of fault is unacceptable to me. Something else I also find absolutely abhorrent is the using of religion to position oneself as some sort of Christian martyr. I admit I have struggled with my faith over the years, but I do believe there are plenty of teachings in the Bible that are universal. And the faith I do have and I'm trying to reclaim guides me to understand that we're here to support one another, love one another, and accept one another. Or as Paul wrote to the Colossians during his time of imprisonment, to clothe ourselves in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just want to say to start that I respect Mary Ellen so much. I've called on her several times throughout my newness of being a counselor and, you know, trying to get my feet wet and figure out exactly, you know, how to navigate certain things. And I certainly appreciate your guidance on everything that you've done so far. And I certainly respect your stance on this and the amount of time that you've put into this report as well. I guess, you know, after listening to everybody, and I don't think my opinion on anybody's feelings outside of this report really matters. I think what I want to focus on is the fact that you're saying there was a breach in the code of conduct, which if that's what you are finding, you are the expert in this, and I 100% will go ahead with that. I guess my biggest question is, you know, this is the first investigation, like you said, of Councillor Jubenville. It's also her first term. This is the first time something like this is being brought to this council. Like, what I guess would bring you to suggest that the maximum penalty would be appropriate?
So there were a number of factors in that respect. One was the number of complainants and the concerns that they raised, the genuine fear that people in the community had as a result of this issue. It has certainly created a divide that is going to need some time to heal around this table and in the community. The fact that I have addressed this in front of council a number of times in January. In April, I did a detailed memo to members of council on social media, hoping that we could resolve this. The number of calls and issues, as I've said, it's not the first complaint I've received regarding Councillor Jubenville, but it's the first investigation, because the other ones I did not feel were at a level that required me to investigate. We had some very good conversations, Councillor Jubenville and I, going over what the parameters were. Some posts were taken down, some were not. Very thoughtful approach. I thought things were going to fall in order, but it's just the impact of the comments I thought needed a strong message to be sent. At the end of the day, as I said at the beginning of my submissions, I make my findings, but it's up to council to decide whether the penalty is appropriate.
Thank you, and I certainly appreciate that. I guess I guess my thought is that, you know, bringing something like this that is so maximum of what you can do could potentially just create more of a divide because of the strong opinions on either side. And I guess in the sense of, if there was an ability for her to know who these specific people were, and if that was the case, then would maybe an apology to those people have been more appropriate? And would an apology then potentially bring everybody together more than saying, we're going to suspend your pay for the maximum amount of time, we're giving you the maximum that we can give you, rather than actually giving an opportunity for all of us to come together and say, we all have very different opinions around this horseshoe, and we all need to respect each other for that. You were disrespectful. You were found to be disrespectful. You were found to disrespect and not follow the code of conduct. The opportunity is there for you to then make amends for it. And for that is the reason why I will not be able to support this, because I think it's important to bring everyone together.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I agree with what many of my colleagues have expressed this morning, in particular Councillor Crew, Councillor Thompson, and definitely Councillor McGregor, who have spoken with countless times over the past several months about these matters, and then we've had some tough and difficult conversations. I'd also like to thank Ms. Bench for her thorough report. I too have shared information and had conversations with Ms. Bench going back to December in regards to Councillor Jubenville. I also emailed her in May and encouraged her to conduct an investigation after reading some statements that Councillor Thompson really alluded to in detail in his comments. Statements that I found that were just reckless and detrimental to our community and detrimental to this council. When we were elected, we all individually agreed to abide by our code of conduct. Ms. Bench, our integrity commissioner, has determined that our code of conduct has been breached, and I agree with her recommendations, and I will be supporting Councillor Crew's motion. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll go to the seconder. Are you going to be declaring a conflict of interest or not? But if you, at this point, you have to say, am I declaring a conflict of interest? If you're not, go ahead and ask a question. If you are, you can't. So, but
Can you clarify what you mean by the conflict of interest? Like, can you clarify what you're asking me?
Madam Clerk, can you clarify, please, what the conflict of interest is?
So Councillor Jubenville, will you be declaring a conflict of interest, a pecuniary interest, and not voting on this particular report?
Are you asking if I'm going to vote on it?
Correct. You haven't declared a conflict at this time.
Oh, I see. No, I'm not going to vote on it.
So you are declaring a conflict.
So, okay, so if I ask a question, I have to say that
I can refer it over to Dave.
I just need clarification. I'm not sure. I have a question to direct to Ms. Bench, and I just don't know how to go about it.
Yeah, so subject to the mayor's ruling, under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, she is able to take part in the discussion but cannot vote on it even if she declares a conflict. So I believe she would still be able to ask a question subject to the mayor's discretion.
All right, I will, given the advice, you may ask a question.
Okay. I just want clarification. Just coming back to what Councillor Doyle had said, when he had indicated to you, when I had a conversation with you about the conversation that Councillor Doyle had with another councillor, you did indeed say to me that you were going to follow up with that councillor. You did not ask me to give you a formal report. So.
No, that is not correct.
Okay.
I asked you to submit a formal request.
You did not, but.
I did. I've checked my notes several times on that when I
It was
was
a
doing
phone
my
call.
report.
It was a phone call. I
I
didn't
make
have any.
notes of every phone call.
No, it was a phone call between Councillor Doyle and another councillor. I had nothing, but you did tell me you were going to call him to confirm the story. Those were your words, but you did not call Councillor Doyle. And that is what you did indeed say to me. I just
No.
wanted to put the record straight.
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Okay, with that, Councillor Crew, do you have any final comments before we put it to vote?
I just, very shortly, I just want to say that we've talked about everything here except for the message that if we do nothing, what that says to our community, that this is okay. This is not okay. This is not who we are, and this is not who we want to be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Wright, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All votes are in and motion passes 13-3.
Okay, with that, we'll do a brief 1-minute pause because there's people waiting to come into the to deal with the rest of the council meeting. So if we want to make the transition.
So that motion passes. Rhonda Jubenville, who has made international headlines with her stance on this flag issue and now being held, well, being punished for social media posts that are supposed to be what? Unethical, hateful, whatever. Let's look at her Facebook page. This is her Facebook page here. So she will be, her pay suspended for 3 months, no pay for 3 months as a counselor. And this is Rhonda Jubenville's Facebook page. Now, I'm not sure exactly what posts she made. Now, they did mention a couple of them specifically. This is a recent post here from today, just talking about how much money the municipality has spent to investigate her. and the additional costs of bringing police down there tonight. And here she says, do you know what books are in your children's school? That was from yesterday. These are not posts specifically related to the investigation. There's the Trudeau picture. She says, this confuses me. And this is from August 5th. I am the daughter of the king who is not moved by the world, for my God is with me and goes before me. I do not fear because I am his. Rhonda is, a Christian. Scrolling down, just gives you a sense of what she's about. Here's Rhonda with Lucy. Happy 83 years young to this beauty I call mom. So a birthday greeting to her mother. Some posts from people about Rhonda shared on her page. And some sort of a news item that is no longer available, blocked by Meta, Facebook, because news content no longer visible on Facebook pages. We're not broadcasting on Facebook tonight for that reason. And here it is. Interesting how people, it says July 28th. Interesting how people can't even comment on their articles. CK News today. I'm a bully. I intimidate people. Question mark, question mark. I'd like to see the proof, as the Integrity Commissioner has yet to provide anything in her report other than the feelings of those who don't align with my views. Why has Canada turned into this? It's sad. My and your freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, is eroding. Feel free to go to CK News today on Facebook and leave a angry face, I guess, or a sad face on this ludicrous article so the media knows there are people who don't agree with what is turning out to be a modern day witch hunt. And then that content also not available anymore because all news content is now being blocked on Facebook, which just reinforces her point that freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of speech is being eroded, canceled, eliminated, destroyed in Canada. And who was it the other night? I think it was Pure Night said that censorship isn't that bad. It's bad, man. This is pretty freaking bad. Rhonda's being shut down, shut up. Our news page on Facebook taken down. And in fact, I can tell you that the Facebook feed of this video tonight and the Facebook page that carries the usual feed of these council meetings also shut down by Meta because it has been deemed to be news content and therefore not shareable in this country. Further eroding the service that Canadians have access to in terms of news and information. There's Rhonda here on July 20th says, are some teachers outstepping their boundaries? An article linked here that probably is no longer available either, but it says Windsor Public School teacher rips Muslim students for skipping Pride Day. I remember that story. So this is, just to give you a sense of what Rhonda's all about. And here she is from July 14th, reposting this. Remember that Coca-Cola commercial? I'd like to buy the world a Coke, or teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I won't play the song because it'll get me a copyright strike. But that was a hugely successful advertising campaign, a massive hit back in the 70s. 1971, radio stations began running a Coke commercial. I'd like to buy the world a Coke, sung by the New Seekers. And it was all about inclusivity, about ending racism. And here she is posting it, celebrating it. But you know, today, diversity, it's not. Oh man, this is what I've been saying for a long time. It's like, we kind of hit a sweet spot there for a while as a society. I think it was far from perfect, but it was, I think, the best it's probably ever been. And now it has been undermined, destroyed. We're so divided now. Things were actually better back then. We were making progress from the 70s. It got better in the 80s. Somehow, though, we've slipped back, taken a big step back. And while this council tonight is taking a stand and is punishing Rhonda Jubenville for the kind of material you're seeing on her Facebook page here, I think there's something seriously wrong. The reason being, if you're going to get into politics, you're going to be dealing with sticky issues. You're going to be dealing with controversy constantly. If you're not prepared to deal with friction and people disagreeing on any kind of issue, then you're in the wrong business. I'd say the Integrity Commissioner and these counselors have lost sight of the fact that people have different opinions on things, especially social issues, Christianity, religion, sexuality, cultural issues. They're punishing her because they disagree with her point of view. And I understand that. But in a truly tolerant and inclusive society, you actually have to tolerate people who have views that to you are intolerable. To a large degree. To a very large degree. So here's May 31st, and this is related very specifically to her motion, which she says here. She says, I believe this honorable flag represents every Canadian, every Ontarian, every municipal resident, and every Canadian student, no matter race, ethnicity, creed, skin color, gender, sexual orientation, disability, vaccination status, marital status, age, religion, educational status, socioeconomic status, etc. This is my personal opinion, the opinion of many people I know, and the opinion of many people across Canada. I'm not here for debate or to be attacked or to be reported. One thing this flag represents is my freedom of thoughts, beliefs, and expression. If you screenshot this, please omit my name. Better yet, copy and paste. To the moles in my friend list, please leave me alone and please unfriend me. And that right there is what formed the basis of her original motion, which, again, generated international attention, made headlines on both sides of the Canada-US border and across Canada, especially. A national story here. And other municipalities also dealing with exactly the same issue, the same flag issue that then resulted in Rhonda's case in a full-blown investigation into her and scrutiny of her social media posts, which the Integrity Commissioner has deemed to be hateful and a source of bullying. And now she is being punished, no pay, for 3 months. A reprimand. Now, I have to say that there are still two truths here. Not that one side is telling a lie and the other side is telling the truth. They're kind of two truths. It's not really a question of truth and lies in this case. It's disappointing to hear that some supporters of Rhonda's were acting improperly with accusations of spitting on counselors in previous meetings, pushing chairs, accusations of additional bullying and verbal barbs being thrown out that are inappropriate. I have to say, I do believe that some of that kind of behavior does take place. It has, because I've seen it. In fact, I've seen some comments in the chat tonight that reflect just that kind of behavior, which I think is very disappointing. It doesn't help Rhonda at all to make comments like that. It really weakens her position. And I would submit that in part, she is being punished tonight because of the actions of some of the people who have tried to support her, but in reality have kind of undermined her position in part because of their actions. She is suffering because of their comments, because of the way they've responded. And while she forwarded a motion that was specifically about just trying to make it fair for everyone, it is pretty clear that some people are just anti-gay who support her and have made their views very, very clear on that point. And by so doing, I honestly would say that they have weakened her position. And anybody who has called for any kind of violence at all also has undermined her position because she's being held accountable for them. Make no mistake of that. And yeah, I'm seeing it in the comments here tonight too, and I'm not surprised. But I am disappointed. Because that's not right either. But can't control what other people do all the time. Nevertheless, I don't have to sit here and endorse it, especially when I know that it actually hurts people who are trying to do the right thing, people who are out there doing the heavy lifting like Rhonda. So yeah, she's been on this show a few times, and you know what my position is on this. You know, this is a terrible situation all the way around, and she doesn't deserve this punishment, in my view. And I think this does have a chilling effect on speech. It will have a chilling effect on not only councillors here in this municipality, but on municipal politicians across Canada. And because this is an issue that has been front and center, not only in Canada, but also in the United States, as I said, in Dearborn, they dealt with this exact same issue and came out on the other side of it with council taking a stand against. They're not going to fly the pride flag very specifically in their community in front of municipal buildings, government buildings in Dearborn, Michigan, you know, over in Detroit. So Rhonda's not alone, and this issue is not just a local issue, but what you witnessed tonight definitely something you're going to be seeing in other communities moving ahead, because we've been dealing with it already, and many other communities will continue to have to deal with this, especially during, you know, Pride Week or Pride Month events coming up next year. So I don't know what else to tell you, folks, but Rhonda says, that even though she was docked pay, when she was on this program discussing this about, what was it, a week ago or 2 weeks ago? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago when she was on. She said that she will still show up for work as a counselor. And I'm sure that will drive some of those other counselors crazy when they still see her sitting there doing her job, realizing that she's not there for the cash. She's there because she has conviction and believes she is, trying to do the right thing. And, Rhonda really has been a champion for the freedom side of things, the freedom movement. She was there ending mandates, working to end mandates at the municipal level, setting a precedent, setting a trend that has continued into other communities. Mandates, this flag issue, that's just one thing. She made some progress on the mandates issue at the local level. And that was, during the pandemic, a major freedom issue because it came down to people's individual rights and freedoms. And Rhonda stepped up and, championed that and made a difference. On this particular issue, well, I don't know. I'm just reading the comments here. Uh-huh. Interesting. Well, let's take a little break. We'll come back and move on to other news because there's other stuff to talk about tonight. And, we'll follow up on this, I'm sure. Maybe tomorrow, maybe, later. I'm not sure. It is what it is. We brought it to you live right here on the Maverick News Channel. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
And Pure Knight, I just have a question for you. Do you work at being a dickhead, or does it just come naturally to you? Do you come here to piss me off and on purpose while pretending to be my friend? Or are you just like a premium, first class, world class asshole? I tolerate your bullshit, and then I try to be your friend and I try to be nice to you, and then you come here and you say, bring bullying back? Screw you. You are the fucking problem. I hereby de-knight you for being a dick. First class, number one, shithead, motherfucking asshole. You are a piece of shit. Pure night. Piece of shit. Bring back bullying. You come here and we'll hash it out, you and me. Better yet, here's the link. No, I'm not going to. Fuck you. Pure night. Go fuck yourself. You hunk of shit. I'm so sick of you and your bullshit. I hereby denight you. Go away. Don't come back. I don't want you here because you are a fucking asshole. And you're full of shit. You're just here to stir things up, scare the shit out of people, get people jacked up, and recruit. So go fuck yourself right up the ass. Get the fuck out of here. You want to bully somebody? You come to my fucking house. And you try it with me. Anytime. You asshole. Bring back bullying. I don't care what weak person it is that you want to set straight, but whoever it is, on whatever side they're on, whether they're gay, straight, black, white, any color, I'll stand up for them every goddamn day against assholes like you son of a bitch. You go fuck yourself and don't fucking come back here because you are no longer welcome in this family. You are hereby excommunicated. Get the fuck out of here. I am really, really sick of you and people like you. You fake freedom fuck. You fucking coward. You piece of shit. Yeah, get the fuck out. Go the fuck away. Do not come back here. Not on this show, not in my fucking chat. You get the fuck out of here, you racist fucking piece of shit. Do you hear me? And I'm not forgetting. This is not what this place is about. There are two truths, like I said. Rhonda is there doing her thing, but there's also assholes like you that make it harder for her and everybody else trying to do the right goddamn thing. You are the fucking problem. You and people like you. You are the cancer. You're a fucking tumor. Fuck you. I've tolerated you far too long. You're free to say whatever the fuck you want. You've said your piece here over and over again, and then you've come back, and I've put up with your shit. But then you come in here and do some more of it. Because you're full of shit. You're a fucking coward. You're an asshole. What you advocate for is not for fucking freedom. And you know something else? You don't believe in Canada. You want to tear it down. I know what you are, and I know what you're about. Sick of you. Because of people like you, you're the one. It's people like you. You're the ones that gave the people on that council tonight the ammunition that they needed to do what they did to Rhonda because of your bullshit, your prejudice, your anger, and yes, it's true, your hate and your viciousness and your violent disposition. I don't give a flying monkey's fuck who else agrees with you. If they agree with you, they're all welcome to go with you too, because you are a motherfucking asshole. Pure asshole. Pure dick. Not welcome here. Go the fuck away. Prick. Bring back bullying. You are the bully. And I'm sick of people like him who've been coming here sabotaging what we do. Just had to deal with another round of the bullshit from assholes like him. I'm fed up. That's not about freedom. Just the opposite. Quite the opposite. That's about authoritarianism, coercion, intimidation, bullying. You're a fucking fascist, you fuck. You're free to say it, and you've said it, but I don't have to put up with it. And I'm not going to endorse it, and I'm not going to give you access to the platform to promote it. Go get your own fucking Rumble paid channel and make your own website and do whatever the fuck you want someplace else. Not here. Nope. You still want to come through here? You want to come visit me like you said you want to come visit me? You come here, you asshole. You come. But don't come back on this channel. You got something more to say to me? You come say it right here to my face. And then we'll get honest. I've had it with you and your fake freedom fuckery, because you're not about freedom at all. Had it. Go away. Boy.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And other things, folks. Lots of censorship going on there. As I said tonight, even the Facebook page for the community broadcast of that council taken down by Meta. Here, I'll show you. Terrible. I picked up that feed over the internet, but normally that same feed would be seen here on this page. Oh, where'd we go? Here we go. This is unbelievable. The extent that they've gone to here. So there it is. This is like a community broadcasting platform, right? This is basically the local cable company, and then they also pick up the feed from the local council meetings and they broadcast it on Facebook. They've been doing it for years. Now you can't get it anymore. Facebook took it down, deeming it to be news content. They took the banner off, content on the page gone, just like our news page. They did the exact same thing to us. And this is just a community broadcasting outlet with volunteers who run it. I think they have one person in a paid position there who kind of coordinates things. It's community, it's a cable access station. And then they rebroadcast it. And it's a place where a lot of people just get their start in media volunteering. And it's a community service, and they've taken that down. That's the result of Bill C-18. Because Meta said they won't pay any media companies for news content. So they're just taking all news content down. But they're taking down everything. They're even taking down some parody sites, comedy sites that deal with news content. That's, they make jokes about, taking everything offline. It's not good for the country. It's not good for our society. It's not good for our local communities. It's terrible. And tonight, though, CTV. Now, I have to say, I'm not really sad to see this. I mean, I am, but I'm not. But mixed feelings. Let's put it that way. Are you blocked from seeing? It says here in this headline. Are you blocked from seeing news on Facebook and Instagram? Here's how to connect with CTV News. This is their lead story. Tonight, CTV in Canada. I used to work for them. They're a good news organization, kind of, sort of. Maybe not so much these days. Like all mainstream media, they've got issues, man, since taking money from the government the way they do, trying to survive, but they've got lots of cash. But this is their lead story about how you can download an app to make sure you continue to get their news content in the face of all this censorship. But they're not alone. And this isn't actually a brand new story today, but it's still number one for them because it affects them. Now they're making themselves not only part of the story, but the lead story on their own website. I noticed, a week ago, they were running commercials on the radio constantly, encouraging people to download apps, and very specific apps where you can get mainstream media, or to download their app, and other mainstream media companies doing the same thing. Now making it their number one story. COVID study, a new COVID study out. And this is also, please don't ban us from me talking about this. COVID study shows impact of hybrid immunity in Canada. A new report. It sheds light on how the pandemic impacted Canada. It has found high immunity levels among the general population. So this study found that high vaccine coverage and population immunity were insufficient to slow the unprecedented increase in infections from the Omicron variants and subvariants. I heard a bunch of stuff about this on the radio today too. In a nutshell, what this comes down to, and here's again a mainstream media version of this story tonight. It shows that I guess about 75% of the population now has some level of immunity because of infection by the virus. And they have the immunity level they have, not so much because of the vaccination, but because of the exposure to the virus, and or a combination of both, I guess. But what they're really getting at here with the reporting surrounding this study, which shows that a lot of people, and again, there's the story for your reference. it shows that there is a high level of immunity now to the COVID virus because of mostly infection at 75%. And they're saying also because of vaccinations, which wane over time, but because people have been infected, they have a high level of immunity naturally now, which is a really good thing. But because there's this new variant of COVID coming out, they are wondering, or they're throwing it out there that, maybe we still need to be worried. Because it might not be effective against the new ones. So you know where that's going. And I'll just leave that there because you can fill in the blanks on the rest. So that is an actual, a news story about, that very touchy subject that can get you in trouble on social media. What else do I have for you tonight? Auto workers preparing to strike. They are prepared to strike in Canada because bargaining is beginning or has begun with the Detroit Big Three automakers. Also, negotiations going on over in the US as well. And the national president for Unifor, which is the auto workers union in Canada, over in the States, it's still the United Auto Workers, UAW. So yeah, the national president, Lana Payne of Unifor in Canada, had strong words for the Detroit Three automakers last week. That's when the negotiations actually began. And it's looking like on both sides of the border, things are not really looking that great. Over in Detroit, where UAW is dealing with this, Biden has chimed in. And while he is sort of trying to cast himself as a pro-union president, he's kind of laid it on the line for the UAW, and he's saying pretty clearly that he really wants them, needs them, is encouraging them to come to the table and work something out. But the environment over there is entirely different than it has been for quite a while. The union is taking a very, well, it's a hard line position, I would say at this point, where they want workers making like their $32 an hour or so. Their union rates, especially in some of these new battery plants that are being built. Instead of, some of these factories are employing people for like $15 an hour, not at union rates. The union is not happy about that. So they're taking a pretty hard line with it. But it's not like it used to be. And it's not as simple as people might think, because the auto industry is in this really unprecedented place with unprecedented levels of competition coming to bear on the electric side of the industry, which is the side of the industry that is growing and is receiving all of these government grants. But China has optimized production of parts for the EV automotive industry, the industry itself, for the production of actual vehicles, for battery components, and for the raw materials even that go into these battery packs. China. And so these auto companies, they're approaching these negotiations with real caution, with all of that in mind. It's a difficult place, and I've been saying this for quite a while. I've been saying it. It's all fine when the credit card is out and the money that is, being spent is fresh on the on the government credit card, right? But when that government money runs out and it comes time to start to pay that back, there better be productivity to match that. And that's where the automakers are at. They're looking down the road and they know what is going to come. So the math has to work. And when you have competing companies like VinFast from Vietnam coming into the marketplace with electric vehicle production, and it's not just, it's not just the traditional automakers anymore who are involved. It's a lot of new companies as well, and international competition coming to bear. This is a kind of a dangerous situation for the Western economies. And you couple that with what's going on with the U.S. dollar and pressure on the Western economies from the BRICS nations and them working toward establishing their own parallel default currency that's gold backed. Not clear where all of this is going, but it's not going to be smooth sailing like it used to be. And this isn't as simple as the union now just dealing with the big three and trying to get the best deal out of all three of them, because those three companies are in a place where they need to keep in mind that they are going to have to deal not just now, but in the future with competition from these other international companies, corporations, and countries like China. That's the new reality. That will be the reality that will be even more pronounced in the years ahead. So we're going to have to wait and see where all this goes with these negotiations. And I would say that this round of negotiations, the contract they come up with this time, probably will be it'll end up being an easier contract for them to get through than the ones that are going to come in the years ahead, because this is going to become even more competitive as we push forward with this EV revolution. In fact, I also know that Tesla has also slashed its prices in China again. There's a price war going on in China right now for electric vehicles. Tesla has led the charge on, if you'll excuse the pun, on the EV price war in China. And they've just slashed about another $2,500 equivalent in American dollars off the price of like a Model Y over in China. And all the auto companies, especially GM, they're focused very much on China because that is, for the auto industry, the growth market, because they are growing their economy. So companies like GM especially very focused on trying to grow over there. They see that as the market where there is the most opportunity, and they've been heavily investing over there. Not as much in North America, in the US. So there's all of that. And then I can share with you this little story about going to Toronto today with an electric vehicle that I had to drop off. And it didn't really go, it didn't go that well. I charged this car up before I left this morning, and I had what should have been plenty of charge to get to my destination in Toronto. So I had about 370 kilometers of charge, or so it said on the vehicle. So off I go in the morning, and I'm thinking I'm going to get there, no problem. I did the calculation, and I figured, because it was only in Mississauga, so I figured I probably would have anywhere from 50 to 60 kilometers to spare easily by the time I got there. But I got to within, I still probably had another maybe 100 kilometers to go, maybe 80. And I was down to my last 70 kilometers of charge, which meant I might come up short. The reason that happened, I believe, is not just because maybe the vehicle wasn't accurate in its range estimate, or that maybe the automaker wasn't being entirely truthful with its range claims on the electric vehicle. It's because electric vehicles on the highway are not as efficient. I don't think that they operate as efficiently as they do in the city, because you're kind of at a high rate of speed all the time. In the city, you're not traveling at as high a rate of speed. And so the way the electric motors work, they just tend to drain the battery pack. There's no like regeneration going on in the city. In city driving, you get some regeneration through regenerative braking, and then the batteries get to rest for a moment and they kind of build charge back up and replenish a little bit. But on the highway, it's just straight up drain the entire time you're driving. So range estimates are not always that accurate. So anyway, I was coming up short. I didn't dare continue because I knew there was a charging station at this truck stop. So I pull over and I go to charge to make sure I can get to my destination. But now I'm going to be late, right? So I pull in, and this particular charging station I've never used before, this particular brand, this IV charging network, and I have to download an app just to charge the car. I can't just like swipe a card or anything. You have to download the app or you can't charge your car, which means you have to have a cell phone or you can't get a charge. You'll be stranded. So you better hope your cell phone is charged up too. Fortunately, I still had some juice left in my cell phone. So I walk up and it's got a QR code right on the charger thing, and you can scan that to download their app, or so I thought. So I scan it, and then it looks like I'm downloading their app, and I'm doing the whole thing, and I'm trying to get going, and I'm punching this thing in my phone. I'm trying to get it going, right? Did that go well? No, not really. Not so well. Because as I'm doing that, I get the thing downloaded and I'm punching in my credit card information and doing all the crap. And what's it wanted? It's not letting me charge the car. It's trying to sell me movie subscriptions to some like Netflix competitive, some alternative to Netflix or something. I don't want to watch movies on my phone. I need to charge the car. Now I've been there for about a half an hour screwing around trying to get this stupid app thing, and it's not working. So I call the toll-free number on the charging station thing, right? I get somebody on the phone, and it's so loud because I'm right there by the highway, and I can hardly hear. I have to get in the car, and the woman's, basically helping me, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, no, you have to go on the Play Store, and you have to do." So it's a good thing I have data. So I'm like, I go on my phone and I find that there's more than one version of the stupid app, but you have to get the right one. So I find the right one, I download that thing, and it's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And then finally I get it all set up, and then I go to use my credit card. And the kind of credit card that I wanted to use, they didn't accept it. It was an American Express, and they don't take American Express. So I had to use a Visa. So I'm using the Visa. I get the Visa punched in there. And fortunately, that one was up to date. So the American Express is up to date too. I don't spend recklessly. So we're up to date. But I hadn't used this credit card in like, I don't know. I don't remember the last time I even used the stupid thing, because I don't use the credit cards anymore. I just, my business is different now, so I just don't. But anyway, fortunately it worked. So anyway, it goes in, and I hook up the charger, and it's not working. I've been there now for about 45 minutes. The charger, not charging. I get another person on the phone, and the thing is, it's out of commission. The charger is not working. So 45 minutes now, and I'm late. It's not really a huge deal, but I'm running behind. And it's just so frustrating. Because it's not the first time that I'd run into chargers that just simply don't work, that are out of commission, out of order. Same thing here in my hometown. When I went to charge the stupid thing, went to a couple of chargers and no, not working, out of commission. And the one, I guess it's been out of commission for a whole year and nobody has come to fix it. Unbelievable, right? But true. So I was talking to, there was a line of chargers there. There were four. I think two of them were out of commission, and including the one I was trying to use. And then I was talking to the two other people at the other chargers, and they were talking about similar frustrations. Everywhere they go, they can't get, they're constantly running into chargers that are not working, out of order. Not every charger, but quite a few. And had good conversation with a couple of guys. They were in a Nissan Leaf, and said they really liked the car, but frustrated with the charging system. And yeah, man, like they want people to buy these cars, and I'm just going, a few hundred kilometers from my home to Mississauga, and I'm already running into a problem, getting an adequate charge to get up there for these reasons. So then I had to wait for these other guys to finish charging their vehicles so that I could get into one of the other chargers. So now I've been there by the time I was done, it was about an hour and a half to deal with getting the car charged. And no fault of the car, but the charging network, not good. Once it was plugged in, I was able to charge for about 20 minutes and get enough. I got lots to get to where I needed to go. It did charge very quickly, but talk about frustrating. And we had that story from, I think it was 2 nights ago, talking about the owner of that pickup truck who took his family on a vacation after spending over $100,000 on the electric pickup truck, only to leave it stranded, took it to a dealer and dropped it off and rented a regular gasoline powered car to finish his family vacation because it was a mainstream media article that we showed you a couple of nights ago where he was having trouble he kept running into chargers that were out of order. So this is a really serious issue. They'll need to find a way to not only build more, install more charging stations, but also make sure that they're functioning, maintained, operational. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole lot of people stranded. Now, still not that many electric cars on the road, but a growing number. And the government is pushing this stuff. And that was my experience today, just from here to there. And when I was going back, actually, when I picked up another vehicle going from Toronto home, the opposite direction, this was 2 weeks ago, I stopped and again, another charger out of commission, out of order, not working. Same sort of thing, but I had enough juice to get home because that particular car it had a full charge and an extended range on it that made it, easy enough to get home. But even here, like when I plug it in, I just have 110 and you can leave the thing on charge for days. Try to charge it up on 110 and it will charge, but it's pretty slow on a 110 volt outlet. So that's the reality of living with an electric vehicle. I can tell you that the electric car that I had was awesome to drive, super fast, very refined, really well built. It's a Hyundai. So no fault of the automaker. They're just doing what the government wants them to do. They're building these cars, and it's a really nice car. Beautiful inside, finely crafted interior, really tight, but the charging network, that's an issue, not just for that auto company, for all the auto companies. And more to the point, it's a big issue for motorists. And it's even more of an issue in the winter when the cold weather affects the battery packs and affects your range. So just food for thought, something to keep in mind. And that's my honest assessment of living with an electric car for another one for a week, which, the range anxiety isn't there like it was even just a few years ago when you had, the original Chevy Volt, they called it, right? Only had I think it was 60 kilometers of range. And then a little gasoline generator would kick in and generate electricity to keep the car going. It worked actually pretty well, but you were driving around on gasoline after just 60 kilometers. Anyway, maybe talk about more of that in another night. Right now, though, it's coming up on 8:24 p.m. And I said I wasn't going to be here at all tonight, but here I am. But I am going to kind of wrap it up for the night. And I should be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, Maverick family, for hanging out with me again tonight. And it's, as always, a privilege and an honor. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you are so inclined. If you like what we do here, we do need your support. You can donate at maverickdonations.com or freedomreporters.com. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell so that you get notifications on all the videos that we post. And please, 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 please subscribe over on Rumble. We need to grow over there. And in the face of all of the censorship stuff, we are working with, some other live streamers, and we're setting up a network to combat the censorship issue. We're coming up with some strategies. We're brainstorming some different ideas. Kevin Michelizzi, who was talking about it just last night. And we're having ongoing discussions about it. And we are going to be doing some different things to make sure that we're able to bring our content to you on a scale that is still meaningful in spite of all of the censorship that is going on. More about all of that in the days and weeks ahead as well. So thank you, everybody. I will be back tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat station. On the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.